Welcome to Building Texas with Justin McKenzie and Summer Bobarack. Sponsored by the Boerne and Kendall County Economic Development Corporation and Das Greenhouse. And now, here's your host, Justin McKenzie.
Welcome to Building Texas, where we sit down with the most interesting people who are making an impact in their community, their region, and across the state of Texas. Today, I'm thrilled to sit here with Steve Mack from Texas Heritage Bank. We're going to have a conversation about economic impact, the history in the region, and banking in the region. So I'm very excited to dive into that today. So Steve, introduce yourself to anybody that might not know you already. How would they know you? Where would they recognize you from?
Thank you, Justin. Happy to be here. Appreciate the opportunity to visit with you today. Yeah, so I've been a banker in Boerne since 2001, so a little over 21 years since my family and I moved here to open up Texas Heritage Bank from scratch in Boerne. And it's been a great experience, and just love this community. We're so happy to be here. So how would people know me? Well, I've been very active in economic development activities around here for most of the time that I've been in Boerne. Certainly been involved with the Chamber of Commerce locally. My wife and I attend Curry Creek Church, and so we're active at Curry Creek Church, and that's about it. My kids grew up and left Boerne, so trying to recruit them back, but we were very active with BISD. I have helped with a couple of bond packages for BISD, served as the chairman of the Long Range Planning Committee there several years ago, back about 2013. I had a bond issue, and then this past bond issue, I served as the treasurer of the Political Action Committee that helped pass the bond issue. So been around and been involved in a lot of different activities.
Well, let's jump back to the original decision to build the bank in Boerne. How did that happen? Tell me what drew you to Boerne, or what put Boerne on your map?
Well, it's an interesting story. I've been in banking for over 40 years. Started in Dallas in 1982. Interestingly enough, the prime rate was 21% my first day on the job. So it's done nothing but come down since then until recently. So I'd like to take credit for that, but I probably shouldn't. But in my time in banking, there's been a lot of interesting things happen. After about 12 years in Dallas, my wife and I had 4 children. We were trying to decide what to do and where to go, and it seemed appropriate for us to return to West Texas. I had grown up north of Lubbock. My dad was a cotton farmer, and so I've got kind of some rural roots in me, and we really felt like we wanted to raise our family outside of the Dallas area. And so I partnered up with some other gentlemen and quit my job and began to look for a small bank to buy in a small town. And in 1994, was able to work a deal to buy a bank in Cross Plains, Texas. Cross Plains is between Brownwood and Abilene, and it's the only bank in town there. My wife and I picked up and moved from Dallas to Cross Plains with our 4 children and began running a small rural community bank there. After about 7 years, we began to realize that if we were going to grow our business, we had to find another geographic location in a market that was more dynamic and growing. And so with the help of my partners, we began to search for the right community and place to do that. And had a partner that lived in San Antonio, was very active in business, economic development in San Antonio, and he suggested that we drive to Boerne. So my wife and I drove to Boerne one weekend, and she said, after spending a half a day here, she said, I think we can live in Boerne. It was quite an upgrade for us. In Cross Plains, we had the Dairy Queen, and here there were at least a half a dozen restaurants we could eat at. So it was exciting for our family, and I knew the business opportunity was a big one. So that's how we landed in Boerne in 2001.
Yeah, I can see the move from Cross Plains, Texas to Boerne, Texas would be, in my view, a welcome one. But I have a lot of friends up in the Panhandle that live and die by the Panhandle generationally.
Right.
And to see them come to the Hill Country, to see people like yourself come to the Hill Country, we also see this movement happening in Lubbock. Lubbock Angel Network is doing really well. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of innovation happening there now. But I think it's because of people like you that come in and see the economic opportunity and then can send it back that direction as well.
Right. Well, we still have our banking operation in Cross Plains and love that community. There's some fantastic people out there. and our bank does well there. So we're pleased to continue to serve that community. But the growth of our business has all been in San Antonio and Boerne and South Texas. So it was a good move for us, both with our family and for our business.
Well, we appreciate having you here. I know the Texas Heritage brand is a brand that carries on Main Street. Everybody knows the bank and wants to do business with you. But I'm going to dive in and show my ignorance a little bit. There's a lot of banks in Boerne, but they're different sizes. They feel different. You walk into their lobby, it's a palpably different experience in each one. What is Texas Heritage? How would you qualify or quantify Texas Heritage Bank as a community bank, a regional bank? It's not a national bank, but are those the right buckets?
Yeah, I can help you dissect that a little bit, but the banking and financial institution industry is fractured a little bit. So you've got credit unions, for example. They fill a spot, a niche in the banking industry that's unique. And then in the commercial banking business, there's kind of two different flavors there. Well, maybe three really. There's the really large multinational banks that are like Bank of America or J.P. Morgan Chase, which you'll see around the area. And then there are more regional players like Frost or Texas Regional Bank, some other banks that Vantage Bank, I think, is one that wants to be in Boerne. And then you've got smaller community banks who are more geographically concentrated. They focus specifically on a community or a region. And so as you think about those different kinds of banks, they all have different niches that they fill. And for a community bank like Texas Heritage, we're a state chartered bank, so our regulation primarily comes from the state of Texas. But we're also a member of the FDIC, which every commercial bank in the country has to be a member. So we get federal regulation from them. But since we're based in Central Texas and Texas is our primary regulatory agency, it gives us the ability to concentrate more on the needs of this area. And that's what we do. That's what a community bank is best at. So we set up shop in a community. Typically, we're owned by locals. We have local ownership here. And then the management typically comes from that community. So they're invested in the community. Texas Heritage Bank is the only chartered financial institution that is headquartered in Kendall County. So every other financial institution that's here is headquartered somewhere else, and they have seen the economic benefit and the growth of our community, and they wanted to take part in it, so they opened a branch here. And that's fine. That's, I say the water's warm, come on in. But I think our model works best for smaller, growing rural communities because we're fully invested here. We're making loans and taking deposits from our friends and neighbors, the folks we go to church with, folks we do business with. And so I think that's where our niche has some value for Boerne and Kendall County.
You're listening to Boerne Radio 103.9 FM. My name's Justin McKenzie, and we're visiting with Steve Mack from Texas Heritage Bank today. And thank you for helping break that down because it's a tough decision just driving down Main Street. Which bank do I go to and why would I go to that? And I go to Texas Heritage because I've come to you with economic development operations and requests and support. And you've always been first in line to support economic growth in Boerne specifically, but Kendall County at large. And that's where I've gotten to know you and where I've really appreciated your heart for economic development. Am I right to say that you're part of the original? It's gone through many phases, I'm sure, through 150 years of Boerne. But if I go back to the Economic Development Corporation founding in 2006, I think you had a voice in that. And can you help us understand what drove the community to formalize economic development?
Right. Yeah. I think there have been some efforts somewhere in our past to try to grow and drive economic progress, but really in 2006, the Chamber of Commerce here in Boerne helped put together a group of local business owners, and we began to to try to chart a path for establishing an economic development corporation. The city of Boerne was very helpful in that. Kendall County was interested. And so with our governmental agencies in support and the Chamber of Commerce working to build it over a series of months, we put together a foundation, the foundation to create a economic development corporation. It's a little bit unique here in Boerne because we're primarily funded by our local business community, although we do get support from our governmental units. And so I think it's a great designed organization because it is very much a grassroots kind of an organization that helps create economic opportunity.
Well, stick with us through the break as we come back with Steve Mack, and we're going to talk more about economic development in a rural community and what he's seen be successful over time.
Did you know we've been playing football in Boerne for 99 years continuously? And for 72 of those years, we've been supporting the fine arts in our public schools with Boerne Turkey Dinner. If you love tradition, if you love Boerne, and if you love turkey, November 12th, BoerneTurkeyDinner.com. Come support the fine arts in our community.
Welcome back to Building Texas. My name is Justin McKenzie, and we're sitting here with Steve Mack from Texas Heritage Bank. In the first part of the show, learned a lot about your history, how you got to Boerne, and then the Texas Heritage Bank story and what you've been able to do in Boerne since you've been here. I think one of the things as we were going into the break, you talked about our structure for economic development that was put together in 2006 is really membership driven. And I want to take it back to the community bank model. Being headquartered in Kendall County means it is a closed loop system. You have people depositing, taking loans, doing bank activity with you, but they're doing it with a headquartered bank here in Kendall County. And then I have to think, because I see your brand, you're reinvesting that in the community through the EDC, through local youth sports. Am I seeing that and understanding it correctly?
Right. Yeah, Justin, that's exactly what we're doing. And, you know, and the banking business is pretty simple. It's the blocking and tackling of the banking business is we take deposits from our local community and then we redeploy those deposits in the form of loans back to local businesses and homeowners and individuals to help take care of their families. So, you know, over the last 10 years, just our bank has invested over $300 million in loans back into our community. We support local nonprofits with our profitability, and we've invested almost $400,000 in the last 10 years in contributions to and support local nonprofits here, and we provide banking services from many churches and nonprofits here locally where we don't charge them service charges to bank with us because we believe in the value of nonprofits and what they bring to the community. And in form of the EDC, we've invested over $100,000 in the EDC and Das Greenhouse over the last 10 years. So I think we've made a significant investment to support the growth of Boerne and Kendall County, and that's what a community bank does. And so we are very proud and pleased to be a part of the, particularly the Boerne Kendall County Economic Development Corporation and the work that they're doing, because we believe strongly that a rising tide lifts all boats, and that's what we want to lift the community up.
Staying in economic development for a minute, and our structure is unique in that it's member funded. There's not, outside of a known support value that they get from the city and from the county, those are annual contributions as a member, they're not seeing sales tax return, which is the typical model in economic development outside of Kendall County. It's very typical that small percentage of your sales tax invest in the economic development of that city, county, region. We don't do that here. We are really looking for the Steve Macks of the world to make an annual contribution to economic development. And that seems lopsided to me. That puts a lot of economic development onus on you, the business, to keep reinvesting in other businesses versus all of the people doing economic activity, buying and selling things
Right.
in the county. And are we missing that?
Well, it is an opportunity that the state of Texas has given to smaller communities in the state, and many cities have enacted a half-cent sales tax that goes strictly to economic development, and there is an economic development corporation that has stewardship of those tax proceeds.
Highly regulated.
It is
very compliant.
It is, and a local board is appointed by the city council to oversee the stewardship of those funds. But that does give them a leg up because they've got a larger pool of money to deploy in recruiting and helping local businesses continue to grow. So how does Boerne and Kendall County compete in that environment when we don't, at this point, have that available to us? And I think we have to work together to do that. And that's why our city and county partnerships are so important, because if we make a commitment together to work on recruiting the kinds of businesses that should be in Boerne, that will support our lifestyle and the kind of place we want to all live, and also help our existing businesses stay here and grow, then we're going to have to work together and come up with some creative ideas to do that. And that means that our municipal and county partners have to step up and provide some incentives to help that happen. And then the rest of it is the creative power that comes from local businesses working together to help grow the community and using our intellect and what resources we've got available to do that.
Well, and I appreciate the comparison, because the light bulb moment for me in this conversation is we do this model with tourism. We do this with the Convention Bureau, or Convention Visitor Bureau, where they've done an amazing job of taking hotel occupancy tax, which is a tax on people that spend the night here, hotels, but this is only for the city of Boerne. Hotel occupancy tax does not exist in the county. Mm-hmm. I think we leave about $1 million on the table every year for that. Mm-hmm. But similarly, the economic half of a cent kind of conversation, and I'm not saying I am for more taxes or less taxes. I think it's the use of funds that we're really talking about, because that pool of money for the CVB, incredibly important. I've heard upwards of $1 million that they have coming in, and they're turning around and reinvesting that in marketing and attraction that supports our local businesses. I think they quietly do more for our tourism and shops on Main Street than anybody else in the community. EDC could do that too, because they would be buying land, promoting, building in certain areas, ensuring that we're really smart growth, designing, keeping the heritage where it needs to be, putting workforce where it needs. That's the skill and the planning that I see other communities doing that financially we're just not equipped to do today.
Right. At this point, we're not. By state law, we're capped at a total of 8.25 cents sales tax here locally, and we're there already. So that opportunity is really not available to us unless some heroic efforts are made to make that happen. But nonetheless, I think that there still is plenty of resources available to us. And I would suggest, I would strongly make the case that the Economic Development Corporation since 2006 has been a fantastic engine to bring in and grow new businesses, bring in jobs, and help our other local businesses continue to grow. So there's plenty of data and statistics that would support that, that maybe you could get from Amy's story at the EDC, but certainly I know that to be the case.
Well, and we see that with the entrepreneurial activity, and I want to thank you for being a founding member, an early donor to Das Greenhouse, and really you saw the vision, and you see economic impact as a way to slow down the export of talent. And I appreciate you bringing up BRE, because business retention is equally, if not more important than attraction. We want to make sure the great businesses that are here stay here and create those future opportunities for our workforce that we want to come back here. You mentioned it earlier. You're trying to recruit your kids back to the region. Let's dive into that. What does that look like and feel like in your family today?
Well, yeah, it's going to be tough. They're pretty well established where they are. But if you use my family kind of as a proxy, we do have my wife LaDonna and I have 5 children between us, and one of our children does live here with his wife and child, and actually he works for Texas Heritage Bank. So we're happy to have Grant there with us. But our other 4 children are well established elsewhere. But if you just think about other families here and the opportunity for their children to come back, we've got to have an environment and a platform here that promotes the growth of business, whether it's entrepreneurs helping people start businesses or whether it's just providing opportunities and good jobs for professionals to come back here. Boerne sells itself. The school district is fantastic. The hill country is beautiful. When it rains, we've got lots of water in our rivers and creeks, and hopefully that'll change here shortly. But it's a beautiful place, and so it sells itself. If we could just provide opportunities for folks to grow professionally, and we're doing that, then I think we'll see more and more of our children as they grow up come back.
Well, and I think we are doing that, and it's efforts like yours and the EDCs. And I think the city has really turned a corner on how they look at this as well, and ensuring that Boerne does, because that's been the old adage, people, if they want to move here, they'll move here. My personal look at this is, how do we get the right opportunities to move here? It's not about the right people. It's the right economic engine that's going to land in the region, whether that's here in Boerne or in Comfort or in Kerrville. It all has an impact on us and how we collect sales tax, how we drive the streets and deal with the traffic, how we do everyday living. And we don't necessarily think about that first and foremost at the start of a day. Well, how's the economy doing? If we think about it as a very macro national economy. People are throwing around $33 trillion and numbers that we can't even fathom. Where I'd love to see people get involved and where I want to encourage people to take the extra time is, how much are we giving back into our community locally? Because, and you mentioned it earlier, with you're headquartered here, so that money stays here, gets reinvested, deployed, philanthropically given here. Santikos is a great example, the San Antonio Area Foundation. Everything they do in San Antonio goes back into San Antonio. And when they expand, guess what? Their expansion efforts all come back into San Antonio. So how do we get people to look at the microeconomics of our city, our region, and who's making impact, and supporting the businesses that are giving to the youth sports, that are giving back to the church? Because I'm very afraid with consolidation, a lot of that local investment that we always just assumed would always be there quickly goes away.
Well, yeah, there is consolidation that occurs. It happens all the time in the banking industry. It's prevalent. But at the same time, what we've got to do, and this needs to happen both locally and at the state level and federally, is that we've got to support small business. And that there's a lot of different components to that. It includes taxation. It includes how we provide incentives and grants to folks. It has to do with how we educate people.
Where are your concerns for the region moving forward in the future? And then I'll ask where you find your optimism.
I think the concerns, and I've heard this on this podcast before. I think water is a big issue that will have to be addressed in the future. We're limited on our natural resources in that particular arena. But outside of that, I don't think that there are a lot of limits to what we can do. San Antonio is a fantastic city, and I think we're blessed to be 20 minutes from the airport. That's a fantastic resource for us in Boerne, and our schools are going to continue to attract good folks who want to be here and want to establish businesses here. So I think those are the biggest limit I see is water. Outside of that, I think we've got plenty of other positive resources that we can use to help continue to grow our economy locally.
Well, it's been a pleasure to visit with you, hear more about your story, and thank you, Steve Mack, for the way you are building Texas. I appreciate the time today.
Thank you, Justin. It's been a pleasure.
Every week you'll learn more about what's being built so that you can understand the vision, find helpful resources, and know how to get involved. This is Building Texas, where we sit down with the most interesting people who are making an impact locally and statewide. Join us every Saturday at 9:30 right here on Boerne Radio.
Texas Heritage Bank is proud to be part of the growth and economic success of Boerne. I'm Steve Mack, CEO of Texas Heritage Bank. Boerne is our hometown, and our message to you is bank local, because when you do, your deposits support the whole Boerne community, where you live, where you work, and even where you eat after church. Meet the team inside Texas Heritage Bank to start your child's first savings account, invest your hard-earned dollars in a CD, or manage your business with our state-of-the-art mobile app. You always have a friend and neighbor at Texas Heritage Bank.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender, NMLS number 776735.
Boerne Radio 103.9 FM. Now let's head over to the Patrick Heath Public Library with Miss Constance for Children's Story Time. As the Patrick Heath Library is open today from 10 to 4, this is Boerne Radio.